If anybody has any questions, feel free to use the chat function in the lower right-hand part of your Google Meet screen. I've got Dakota, the other member of our support team, in here with us, and he will be monitoring the chat to answer or to ask any questions you've got. Chris Krug is here as well. He's going to talk about a couple of things potentially as we go through this, answer questions as well. And then if you think of any questions after the fact, feel free to send them to our support box. Again, that's support@myracepass.com. And, anything that comes up or anything you want to change or fix or look at or whatever else, always feel free to reach out to us. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we will kind of get the process started. So last week, we looked at season management primarily, creating your schedules, adding the correct classes, so on and so forth. So if you have any questions as it relates to season management and getting all that stuff set up, go back and watch last week's webinar. It was all in there. If you have any questions beyond that, like I said, send them to us. But today we're going to look at race management. So I've got an event created here, and I'm going to start, kind of going through the screen. First thing is the setup tab. This is the first place that you come when you come to the race management area setup. There's really not a lot here that you're deciding, to be honest with you. What you're looking at is how you want the program to handle the pill draw. By default, it'll be set to auto draw. I work at a couple of different racetracks and with a couple of different series, and that's usually fine for everybody that I work with. There's going to be instances where maybe that's not the thing for you guys, and there's other options in here as well. You can have the auto draw take place when you find the driver, before you find the driver, or after. There's a fly in my office. And then you can also have manual entry. There's manual entry options as well. So you can have, if you got a lottery wheel or, poker chips or whatever else that you're going to use to handle the pill draw, you can have it be a manual entry process too. Beyond that, transponder options, and this is kind of just what it looks like. If you run transponders, you're going to use transponders. And then if you have a stock of transponders that you're going to let drivers rent or borrow from you, mark that appropriately as well. So not a lot there. You can set this as default. So you set it week number 1 and never have to worry about it again, basically, as the year goes on. And then you can also set different options for each class that you're running. I only have one class added to my demo event, so it just looks like there's one screen here for everything. But again, if you're running multiple classes, you can set, different things for different classes if you're running transponder for one group or whatever else. From there, I'm going to skip MRP Live for the time being until I have lineups created, because I can show you how to push everything at once. But I'll jump into the entry screen. Entries is where you're putting the driver into your entry list for the event. Now, last week we talked about registration. I know sometimes the naming can get confusing in those two places. People call it one thing or another. Registration and season management is just the process of gathering driver information before the season or before the event, however you're going to do your registration. So you're getting their name, their contact information, their address, their car owner, all that kind of stuff. You're just gathering that information. The entries page here is where you're actually putting that driver into an event. So I don't want to conflate those two things. There's 3 ways to enter a driver into or to find a driver to enter into an event, I guess. This My Competitors list on the left-hand side of the screen, where you see all of the names, all that is a list of people who have raced with you before in that class or registered in that class. Nothing beyond that. Just your repeat customers are always going to show over here. So it's easier to find those folks, and you can filter that list by car number as well. So I type in an 07, and it brings up all the 07s. I type in a 23, brings up all the 23s. So simple and easy there. There is a search option as well. Search option is just an active search. You type in the name of the person that you're trying to find, and the search results come up based off of what you typed. This is also where you create a new profile, although I will say it should be a fairly rare occurrence to create a profile. Every driver who's ever raced at any track that uses MyRacePass will already have a profile. So if somebody comes up and says, I'm JD Williams, you don't find JD Williams, okay. Is it under your full name, Jason Williams? Or, is it a junior or a senior? So, yeah, everyone who's ever raced at any track that uses MyRacePass will have a MyRacePass profile already. So you can create new, but it should be a fairly rare occurrence. But the string of text is there. Third way to find a driver is the scan barcode option. every driver who claims their profile and then logs into the app with that same email address will have a barcode in their app that will house all of their driver information. So you can just scan that, and it bypasses the search process, and you should be set there. For folks who don't have a smartphone or haven't done that process, haven't claimed their profile, we have these MRP cards as well. They say MyRacePass on them. They've got a barcode on the back. Again, scan the barcode, houses all the driver information, prevents you from having to search, all that kind of stuff. All of your drivers should be very familiar with this process, because in order to compete at or get paid at IMCA Super Nationals in Boone, they have to have an MRP card. So if they've ever raced Super Nationals, they already know what this is like. They already have a card. I sit at the table and assign them to them. So makes it pretty simple and easy. Yeah, Stacy's correct. If you don't have a ticket scanner, there's a number on the bottom of the barcode that you can type in as well. So 3 ways to find a driver. Regardless if you scan, search, or click, it all brings you to the same place, which is this screen. This screen is the process of putting in the entry information. There's a lot of stuff here, but there's really only 4 pieces of information that you need in order to put them in an entry list. First being the pill draw number. Now, I put my pill draw number to auto draw, so it drew me an 11. This box is grayed out. There's no way to doctor the pill draw. I can't type over top of that. Drew an 11 for me. That's how the auto draw works. If you have it set to manual entry, you have to type a number in here. Second piece of information is car number. Just what it sounds like, number on the door of the car. The program will not allow duplicate car numbers per class. So if I enter as 23 and you have somebody else that comes up as 23 later, you'll have to put an X or an L or a whatever behind that, and that's all well and good. And even though I think it should be illegal, it will also allow special characters. So if somebody shows up and says, hey, I'm number 1 star, you can put an asterisk in there and it'll accept it just fine. So that's 1 and 2, self-explanatory stuff there. The third piece of information is the owner data. The owner data will come up in 2 instances. First, if you award owner points, every single one of your drivers will have to have something in there for car owner. Even if they're a driver owner, you'll still have to put them in there for car owner for owner points to work properly. Owner points is a fairly rare occurrence anymore. Not a lot of places are doing that, so you probably won't have to worry about that. But if you do, everyone has to have a car owner option. And then the second way that owner comes into play is, and this is, more standardized, is if somebody other than the driver is getting paid for the night. That's where, payout goes to owner. There's an option there for that. So if I hit the search button, it'll bring me a list of all of the owners that driver has ever had in MyRacePass, regardless of network. If that person's not showing, or if the owner's not showing there, you can jump over to all owners and search through our entire database of owners. So if in some magic world I ever raced for Tony Stewart, you type in Tony Stewart Racing, it shows up. We're all good to go there. If you're typing somebody in there for a car owner and they're not showing up at all, you can also add a team over here. And all you really need is a team name, a number on the side of the car, and the type of car that it is. And that's really all you should need in there. So you can create an owner information. But again, because they probably raced for that person before, it should be fairly straightforward. If they're showing up with the same car every week, you can set it as default. If the payout's going to the owner, you set payout goes to owner. Everything's all good there. So that's 1, 2, and 3. The fourth piece of information that you'll need at the backgate sign-in is transponder number. If you're running transponders, type in the transponder number. If it's their own, you can mark it as the default, so you only have to type it in the first time. If they're renting from you, you check the rented box, and there's a report that you can run. Then the entry list report will show you everyone who's rented a transponder from you, so you know who to chase down. So I'll mark it as rented. No, that's well and good. So that's the 4 things that you need to have in here in order to put somebody in an entry list. The pill draw number, the car owner if it applies, and the transponder number if it applies. So if you're not using transponders, you only have to worry about 3 of these things. If you're a series and the tracks are handling payout and you're not handling payout, then you'll never worry about an owner unless you're doing owner points. So potentially there's things you don't have to worry about, but if you got all these, there's really only 4 pieces of information. Now there are other things in here, and I'll go through those as well. Lineup override will allow you to put somebody to the back and ignore the line calculation that you've got. So if you need somebody to start at the back for the heat races or start at the back for all races, you have that option here for lineup override. Payment amount and payment method only will exist for you if you're on a partner plan currently. There's really only a couple of networks that use this right now, but you have the option if you're on the partner plan to track entry payments, whether that's pit passes or whether that's a draw fee or whatever it is, whatever entry payment you feel like you need to track, you have the ability to do so if you're on the partner plan. There's really no reason to make anybody inactive. The only time I ever really see that used is if somebody's doing an entry list in the days leading up to the event, and they don't want the entries to show active until the event date. Again, that should really come up pretty rarely. Otherwise, there's really no reason to make anybody inactive. And contingency information, also only available on the partner plan. Think of Lucas Oil Late Model Dirt Series when they do their contingency point standing for like Sunoco race fuel points or stuff like that. So it's not a nightly contingency bonus. It's a contingency point standing that you can calculate. I think Lucas Oil and USMTS are the only 2 that use that right now. But if you're on the partner plan and you have some use for it, it exists. Beyond that, the only thing that I really point your attention to is this confirm membership section. This will just be your verification visually to see if they've registered with you or not. So if they filled out a registration, it'll exist here in confirm memberships. And then, address on file is up here if they've claimed their profile. Has all forms is another feature of the has all forms is another feature of registration. That you toggle that as a yes or no toggle, either on or off if they've turned in all of the paper forms outside of the program and registration. Again, watch last week's for more information about what that is. But from there, basically you can have them in the entry list. So that is a lot of stuff. It looks like a lot of stuff, but really all we need is pill draw number, car owner, and transponder. The other stuff is nice to have. You can utilize it if you want. We recommend utilizing it. But if you're in a time crunch at the back gate, you only have to worry about those few things. So I'm going to throw a couple of drivers here into an entry list, and we'll have ourselves a fake race. I do want to make mention of the fact that all of these drivers, all of these fake drivers that don't exist, were all created by our development team. So I spent exactly 0 hours of my life putting all of these cat pictures in for the profiles. And that's everybody. This will be a good example. It doesn't allow duplicate car number. So I try to add him, gives me an error. The number he's already taken. So I can put in something else behind that. But that's kind of the example. I mentioned the program doesn't allow duplicate numbers. It also doesn't allow duplicate transponder numbers on a per class basis. So if you try to put in a duplicate transponder, you'll get the same type of error message. We also have it to where you can edit the transponder number here on the right side of the screen. This is valuable. There's a lot of tracks out there that have their pit passes, their driver entry in one spot, and then their transponder number, their transponder rental location in another spot. So if that is you, you can actually filter this list by transponder number, by pill number, by car number, by a lot of different things. And so you'll be able to get the folks who need transponders, rented transponders, without having to go back into the entry list or re-enter them. You can also edit all of the same information over here. You can edit the entry. You can assign them a card right here if they don't have a card already. You can change all of their contact information for the driver, their owner, or the emergency contact. You can edit their name or hometown here as well. Be aware, though, if you're editing the hometown here or the name here, you won't see that change immediately. There's actually an approval process that comes through myself or Dakota or Chris where we confirm the name change is a legit name change or hometown change, and then we process it after the fact. So if you're putting in a name or a hometown change, you probably won't see it adjusted until Monday morning. But we've got 10 cars in the entry list here. The only other option on this screen for you is import from previous races. So if you're running, a multi-day show, you can easily import night one's entry list into night two, so you don't have to do all the extra work. I still actually prefer to enter people as they come through the gate, just for the sake of accurate information always being present and double checking my work. But you can import entry lists if you deem it necessary. The races tab exists here as well, and this is where you're starting to set your format for the night, the types of races that you're running. So for our demo event, I'm going to keep it really simple. I'm just going to qualify everybody into 2 heat races and then run an A feature beyond that. 2 heats in a feature is, pretty standard if you're going to have 10 cars, and that's what we're going to do there. So I've added qualifying. I've added 2 heats in a feature. I should have shown you this before I added the races, but you could actually see in that tab, and maybe this will be the ticket here if I go to 413. Yeah, you can import your previous race data as well. So like this, 320, I had 10 entries. I ran 2 heats in a feature. Well, if I'm running that same format, I can just click this button and import that races tab data. So you can import that in one click, or you can set it here. You're setting this class by class. So if you're running 10 classes, you have to do this 10 times, but it doesn't take long to do. Other features of this screen, you can change the name of your race. So you'll basically changing the name of the race will allow, if you got like time trials instead of qualifying, if the Outlaws are there and you've got, a last chance showdown instead of a B main. Those are the options that you'll have for changing the race. One thing that I've seen a lot lately that I really like on this screen is if you're kind of having some kind of memorial race, instead of just the A feature, call that the name of the memorial race. I really like that extra step that people have taken. So like, for instance, when I ran my dad's race, called it the Mark Lloyd Memorial Championship feature. It's an extra level of appreciation for those folks that you're trying to show. I really like that when people have done that. Sponsor information is here as well. So if you've got Lincoln Electric time trials, if you've got MyRacePass heat race #1, if you've got Bob's Garage A main, put sponsor information here as well. Some of the things that you can do here. Race configuration exists as well. And this is basically how you're setting your transfers. The per race or from group option, all you're really deciding here is if you're running passing points or not. If you're transferring people from the heat races to the feature, then you're going to leave this from per race. So if you're taking the top 5 from each heat to the A main, you're setting it as per race. If you're lining up the feature based off of passing points, then you're going to change this to from group, because instead of per race transfers, we're grouping all of the heat races into one group and taking the top however many you want to take out of passing points that way. So for this particular example, I'm not going to run a passing point show, but just be aware that from group option exists. And if you're going to do passing points, there's a number of schemes that already exist in the program. There's USMTS, there's ASCS, there's a whole bunch of passing point schemes for points that would work. Or if you're going to set your own custom scheme, you have that available to you as well. So for this race, I'm not going to transfer anybody to the A main from qualifying. I'm going to send them all to the heat races. From the heat races, I'm going to send them all to the A main. And then if you really want to, you can do what they do at Super Nationals and start them 3 wide. That option is available for you as well. From there, I'm going to jump into lineups. Lineups, I'll just set the qualifying order based off of the pill draw. We've got qualifying from pill draw. Everything's good there. When we get into the heat race stuff, I'm going to show you the IMCA specific lineup schemes. They're very simple and easy to understand, but it's important to know what you're going to do with lineups before race night. If that means you're reaching out to support to ask questions, feel free to reach out to support to ask questions. Hey, this is how I want to line everybody up. What lineup scheme do I choose to make that happen? Myself, Dakota, Chris, everybody involved, we've got no issue answering those questions. We want you guys to feel comfortable going into your first race. We don't want you guessing at what you should be doing. Send that to us. Chris, you got something?
Well, yeah, I was going to mention too, don't forget the sandbox too, guys. We have that there for you guys to really play around. You're not going to mess anything up in there. Honestly, it's all meant for you guys to be able to simulate a race night. So if it's like 8 o'clock at night and you guys are just playing around the system, you want to try some things out, that sandbox is there for you guys to do that. The only thing you can't do, obviously, is the MRP live connection. And also don't save anything permanent, as that does refresh every single Monday as well, too.
Yep. Yeah, sandbox is valuable. From there, okay, I've got a qualifying order. This is the process of connecting now to live timing and scoring. There are two, obviously, major live timing and scoring systems out there. We've got Race Manager and we've got Orbitz. So I'm going to do the connection to Race Manager first, and then I'll back out of that and do the connection to Orbitz so you can see what that looks like. But they both start with MRP Live. When you come to the MRP Live tab, there's a download application link. MRP Live is the small application, and when it's installed, this is what it looks like, that exists in between MyRacePass and, for this case, Race Manager or Orbitz. I would recommend that you install MRP Live on the same machine that Race Manager or Orbitz is running on. Now, MyRacePass is web-based, so you can have that existing anywhere you have an internet connection. I usually see what's most common is you'll have somebody in the booth there running Race Manager or Orbitz, and then you'll have somebody next to them running MyRacePass. Usually I see two people doing that. I've seen it be one person. I've seen the person running running MyRacePass sitting in an office location or in wherever else. So it's possible to run that anywhere you have internet, like I said. But usually I see two people in booths running that stuff. The connection to Race Manager is extremely simple. There's an IP address that's listed here in Network Broadcast Control. That's the IP address that you'll put in here. If you're using the same computer every week, that IP address will stay the same all season long. The port number exists down here in the R monitor section. It's 50,000. In the 2 years that I've been doing this, I've never seen it be anything other than 50,000. It's just always 50,000. That'll never change. So when you get that set right the first time, pretty much how it's going to be. The only thing that you'll have to worry about changing on a night-to-night basis is this MRP Live connection code. Every event generates its own specific and unique connection code. That's how we tell the data which event to apply to. So you put the connection code in, make sure you've got the right scoring system selected, and we will connect. From there, it's a matter of pressing the Get Lineups button. I press Get Lineups, and then when I come back into Race Manager, I ran a demo race in Race Manager not long ago, so let me waste everyone's time by deleting the last stuff that I did. That's what happens when you don't plan ahead. All righty. So let's try that a second time. I'll press Get Lineups. And now when I come into Race Manager, the competitors list with the transponder number, the car number, and the name and the names already exist. And all of the lineups that have not yet been completed exist here as well. So I've got my qualifying. It's the only lineup that I've got available. Here's qualifying. I've also got the competitors list. So I can go in here the way you always would in Race Manager, and I can blue flag, green flag, run the race with whatever cautions, reds, whatever else. And then when the race is done, checkered flag and stop. And that stop button is what pushes the data back to MyRacePass for results. And I'll show you what that looks like in Orbitz, actually. So I'm going to disconnect here, and we'll do the same thing connecting to Orbitz. Orbitz up and open here. So now I'm going to pick Orbitz. I'm going to connect, and again, it's all exactly the same in terms of the IP address, the port number, and the connection code. In Orbitz, when you come to distribution, that's where the IP address and port number are listed. Again, the port number is always 50,000. I'm using the same computer, so the IP address is the same. It's a very similar process in connecting. Now that I've got Orbitz connected, I'll get lineups. In Orbitz, the only difference is that I actually have to import them. It doesn't just show up automatically. So when I go to import my groups and runs, I'll import the groups first. That's the classes. So I can next my way through that. And then you see all the class information is up here already. And then I can import the runs. That's the races. So you only will have to import your classes one time. At the very beginning of the night, you'll never have to worry about it beyond that. You'll have to import your races every time you've got new lineups. But I can time this. Let me get the world's fanciest track simulator up and running. Okay, purple flag exists, green flags exist. I'll give these guys 2 laps for qualifying here. But it works the same way. Unfortunately, my track simulator is just very slow. That was the initial green flag, I think. I think I made that mistake of going green after the finish line. Cool. There's lap 1. We'll give them a second lap so it's an official race. And then from there, we can checkered flag and stop, which again is what prompts the program to send the results back to MyRacePass. So I'll checkered flag and I'll stop. And then I can come back to MyRacePass and into the results tab I go. Whether I click that button or I click the MRP Live button, it does the same thing. It brings the results over. There's my finishing order. There's my results. All I have to do is save, and it's done. You're also putting in your DNFs, your DNS, your DQ, or your black flag on this screen. NPP stands for no passing points. So if you're running a passing points format, this is how you can award a driver finishing points, but not passing points. Like if they elected to start at the tail and you don't want to give them credit for passing cars that they didn't draw to pass, you can do it that way. You see the plus minus here, all that kind of stuff. That's all well and good. The other thing you can do on the screen is you can share to social media, share all the results to Facebook and Twitter. And there's a media format button here too. So media format button, I really only use for one purpose. I copy the results out of this screen and paste it at the end of the news article that I'm writing so that I can have the full results at the end of my press release. But just so you're aware, the string of text results exist here as well. So I've got qualifying done. Jump into heat race options here. With IMCA stuff, typically, you guys obviously aren't going to qualify. So that really won't come into play very often. So there's IMCA built-in options here as well. So I'll direct you towards those. The IMCA pill draw is if you're running opening night or a draw-redraw special. Those are the two options that IMCA pill draw will come into play. It will automatically put in the pill draw for the starting order for the heat races. And if you use IMCA pill draw for the feature, same lineup option for the feature, it's going to give you the correct redraw cars based off your car count and your number of heat races, line up everyone behind those redraw cars based off of their heat race finish. It will manage all of it for you based off of IMCA rules. So I really want to stress that. If you're running an IMCA sanctioned class, you're running IMCA rules, you're making sure that on opening night or draw-redraw shows, you're picking IMCA pill draw for your lineup options. Otherwise, you're running IMCA point average for your heat and feature lineup options. We've got it keyed in here as 2021 yet because, as we know, in 2021, IMCA changed their rules regarding what a point average looks like. So we actually have the old one in here. There's an IMCA point average somewhere in here in our whole list that exists. They're pre-2021, but the rules compliant one, the good one, is the one that's labeled 2021. So if you're not running draw-redraw, it's night 2 and you're not running draw-redraw, this is the point average option. We really shouldn't deviate from that at all unless you got like special permission from IMCA to do so. I know we did at Houston's once last year so we could qualify our 305s. But beyond that, it's built in, it's tested, it's verified, it is along with the rules that IMCA promotes. So we want to make sure that's what you guys are doing. Point average or draw-redraw shows, they're built in here. So I've got a bunch of points on this schedule so I can do the point average one. And never mind. I'm not using the correct schedule. So let me do this a different way. I'll do the pill draw one. Calculate like it's opening night. There's always the how was this calculated option at the top of the screen. This will give you a report dependent upon what lineup option you're choosing. So if I chose the point average, it would give me everybody's point average in here. If I chose passing points, it would give me everybody's passing points in here. The opening night is a pill draw, so it's giving me everybody's pill draw number in here. So it just is influenced based upon what lineup scheme you've chosen. You can also share your lineups to social media right here. There's the media format button, or this button will take you to results. So all of those things exist. But now I've got new lineups, so I'm going to press the Get Lineups button. Now I come into orbits. I can import my new runs because I've got new lineups. There we go. There's my heat race 1. There's my heat race 2. Now, in demo mode in Orbits, it only allows for 10 cars. So I'm going to show you how to put in the results manually in case live timing and scoring ever goes down, or you're not using live timing and scoring. You don't have transponders. You can see how to do this manually. 2 ways to do it. You either click on the driver's name on the left-hand side of the screen in the order that they finished, or you type in the number and press enter. Pretty self-explanatory. Now, this dice option exists here, so you can drag and drop people around. Like, for instance, you know this guy got 3rd, but his transponder stopped firing, or you clicked on him in the wrong order, or whatever. You can drag and drop him up to 3rd and resave. Do whatever you need to do there. But pretty simple to do results manually if live timing is not part of the equation for you that night. So save is completed there. So now my heat races are done. Jump back to the lineups tab, and I can calculate my feature lineups. So I'll do the IMCA opening night A feature lineup option, calculate that. Again, it gives me all the redraw information. 12 cars would redraw. I only have 10, so it's not going to matter for me. But, or 10 cars would redraw, excuse me. You can either auto redraw them one at a time. You can auto redraw them all at once. Or if they're drawing their own pill, you can manually type in whatever they've got. However you want to do that. I'll auto redraw them one at a time all at once to save time. And there we go. There's my redraw order. Everything's good there. A couple of other options I want to show you here exist in the Tools menu. In Tools, there's a lineup monitor. This lineup monitor will show you all of the lineups that you have created, but they'll fall off of there as soon as that race has gone checkered. As soon as you've completed the race in the results tab and saved it. This auto refreshes periodically about every minute throughout the course of the night. So I'm going to use Houston as an example again, where we're on IMCA Race Saver sprint cars. We're big jerks there, and we make everybody park in the infield away from their haulers. And because of that, reception's not great. So I have this lineup monitor going on a TV in the infield. So I set it at the very beginning of the night, and I don't think about it again. And then periodically, this will refresh about every minute. So all of the appropriate lineups will always show on this screen. You don't have to worry about it refreshing. The races that have gone checker will fall off of here. It'll only show you relevant lineups. So if you've got somewhere where you've got a lineup board where you're writing stuff out by hand, or you're stapling lineups or whatever, consider going this route, because it's one less person that you have to pay. It's one less place that you have to run to. It's one less thing that you have to do on an already busy and chaotic race night. The lineup monitor exists, and it is helpful for those folks. What's up, Chris?
One thing I have to mention too is Austin was showing you guys how to send lineups to Race Manager and to Orbits. Don't forget to on the marketing side of things for you guys, it's really important to have your fans and drivers go ahead and favorite your profile, MyRacePass.com, because when they do that, and the minute you send lineups the first night, it triggers a push notification to those that have favored your profile to let them know, hey, XYZ Raceway is live now. Click here to follow along. So when you guys send those lineups off, and it only happens when you actually use the correct format. I know there are ways to connect to live without sending lineups over. You can do it kind of manually there. But when you send them, like Austin showed you, it will trigger that notification to your race fans with the push notification where it will tell them, hey, we're live now. Click here to follow along the action with live results and lineups and entries.
Yeah. Thank you. Beyond that, so I've sent lineups again, so now I can import my new runs. I will do that now. There we go. Finish and go, and we're good to go. So there's my feature. I can now time my feature. Get my demo track up and rolling here. Cool. So I can do that. I can run my feature, purple and green. And we'll start here. While this is running, I want to show you one of the other tools that we've got available in the browser. If you go to MRP Live up here, there's a lap viewer option. In this lap viewer, you can actually watch live timing and scoring in the browser if you have admin access. So you can see all of the information that you want to see. You click the pin, it'll only show you information for the last crossing, which, during a real race doesn't really make a lot of difference. But during qualifying, it's super helpful. You can expand this screen as well to show you, more information here. You can click on the name of a driver to only show you information at the bottom of the screen for that driver. I look at a lot of these things from an announcer perspective because that's what I am. And I will look at this screen as much as I'm looking at the racetrack because it has so much information that's relevant that I want to share with fans. There's different views here as well. I only see 3 of our 5 views. I'll tell you about the other 2 because I'm in a demo profile. But in the app or at a real racetrack, you'll see all of them. Running order, just what it sounds like. Best lap, just what it sounds like. If you're running a race that says hot laps or time trials or qualifying or anything like that, it'll automatically switch to the best lap view so you can see at the top who's fastest. Positions gained, again, just what it sounds like. Shows you the plus minus of how many cars they've passed or not passed. You can switch to that so you can see what it looks like. There's 2 other views that we've created and released here pretty recently, actually. First one is average lap time. This is the one that I'm really excited about. It'll show you the full race average lap time for all the green flag laps for every driver, so you can see who's faster or slower based off their averages. And it'll also show you that same information for the last 3 laps. So over the last 3 laps, is second place a 10th faster than first place? You can say that now into a microphone. It's interesting. It's cool. Fans like that. The other view that we've got is laps led. So you can see how many laps each driver has led throughout the course of the race. So again, you can access live timing and scoring from up here. There's other things in tools. There's an announcer screen. There's various reports up here. A lot of stuff that we can look at here. Yeah, that's some of the options that we've got available. I will now, let's see, let 10 cars cross the line, checkered flag, and stop the race. There we go. Now that I've checkered and stopped the race, I can come back to results. I can put in my results for the last pending race. And here we are. Everything's good to go there. Of course, I got 9th out of 10. Didn't pass anybody. That's typical. But beyond that, you can share. You can do the media format. Everything's good to go. Now that I've saved this completed, the information's available in app. People can see the finishing positions, all that kind of stuff. Everything's available in app as soon as you do that. Before we move into looking at all of the available points and pay schemes for passing points and moving into calculating our points and pay, I want to make sure that everybody is clear on what we've looked at. If you've got any questions about the entry process, if you got any questions about lineups, if you've got any questions about putting in results, the floor is yours. Mickey?
Hey, I got a question. I know there was a mix-up some last year. When we're doing the feature on IMCA after the first night, the points thing in here does the inverting for us. Is that correct or no?
Yeah, it's based off a redraw. The redraw stuff's built in. Is there a way to remove a car from the team list, Stacy? I don't know. I've never tried to do that before. Send an email to support, and we will research it for you. Chris, unless you know.
No, on that I don't know. I'm not new. But one thing I want to ask though, Austin, I get this question a lot, and I'm actually not familiar myself here. Driver shows up late. You already sent lineups over. What do you do? What's the process there on that? I get asked that a lot when calls from promoters myself.
Largely, I tell tracks to set their own policy, and I encourage tracks to be aggressive with that policy. Publish your draw cutoff time. If somebody shows up after your draw cutoff time, let them know that they're going to be starting at the tail of your heat race. We have tracks that, say, hey, if you call ahead, then we'll still get you your information in. You'll still be part of the draw, whatever else. I don't particularly think that you've got to have folks waiting out at the pit window all night long for somebody who might show up right before heat races start. Let them know. Come whenever you want to come. If you come after this time, you're going to start at the back for your heat. That's typically how I would handle it, but you all have the freedom to set your own policy. If you want to have somebody hanging back out there at the pit gate all night, you want to recalculate lineups if someone shows up late, that's 100% up to you. You guys have the ability to make your own decisions and free will. We can facilitate that. But I'll tell you, if it was up to me, I would have a pretty strict draw cutoff time. And if you're going to be late, you better call me.
Right. And with that, though, do you need to go ahead and resend lineups, though, if you're using transponders or when you put them in the back of the pack, or do you just go ahead and, I mean, what's the process there for that?
Yeah, if you add somebody to a lineup and that race hasn't been run yet, it's really not anything. You basically at that point you manually throw somebody in the back of a heat race lineup because they showed up late. We'll say that was this guy. Okay, he showed up late. I'm going to throw him here. I just open MRP Live and press Get Lineups, and the new lineups will be over there. You might have to let your person who's running Orbit. If you're running Orbits, you'll have to let your person who's running Orbits know, hey, you're going to have to re-import your lineups. If you're running Race Manager, that obviously happens automatically. But yeah, if you put somebody in an entry list after you've sent lineups, you'll have to resend lineups.
Austin, just real quick, where was that display again for the lineups that you mentioned instead of having to print out pages? Where was that you can make that automatically displayed?
Sure. Yeah, it's under Tools at the top of the screen up here. It's the lineup monitor.
And you have tracks that are taking that and putting that up on putting like a computer monitor in the window, and they can look at that. All right.
I do it every Sunday in Houston. Yep.
Good idea.
And with that too, there, Adam, and everybody else too, if you have a whole list of like heats here that's more than what the screen can hold, it does scroll every about 30 seconds. It goes to the top, so you can see that, and then back down again to that there. And as Austin mentioned, it does refresh as well too throughout the entire night too.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Yep. Cool. From there, I'm going to take a look at some of the lineup options that exist in the program, and then take a look at our points and pay schemes as well. You can find that up in settings, and that settings option exists no matter where you are in the program. If you're in season management, you're in race management, settings is always up here. And the points and pay schemes is what we're looking for. Now, if I'm adding a scheme, the points stuff is going to be pretty straightforward because as IMCA tracks, as most of you are, you're going to have the IMCA built-in lineup schemes for your modifieds, your stock cars, your hobby stocks, your sport mods, your sport compacts, sprint cars, all of it. It's all in there. So when you're doing points for your IMCA sanctioned classes, there isn't a whole lot to it. It's pretty straightforward. If you're running classes that are not sanctioned or sanctioned by other sanctioning bodies, we've got the USRA one in here, we've got WSOTA ones in here, stuff like that. But you can also create your own custom point schemes, and that's a pretty straightforward process as well. I can just commandeer this one here for a second. It's really easy to do. You're basically just putting in for every kind of race that you're going to award points for, whether that's qualifying or heat race or A feature or B feature or whatever. You're basically just putting in the number of points that are going to be, that are coexistent with that position. That correspond is the word I couldn't think of. You can also add passing points here if you're having passing points feed into your championship points. Very rare. I probably wouldn't do that if it was me, but you can. And you can, have different modifiers for your DNFs, your DQs, those types of things. For your B feature, you obviously want to make sure that you exclude the transfers to the A feature so they're not doubling up. All that kind of stuff exists. You can do all of those things. But it's fairly straightforward to set your point schemes here. But again, for IMCA classes, those point schemes already exist out of the box. You just have to pick those point schemes for when you're calculating your points at the end of the night. Pay schemes work the exact same way. Everything is obviously IMCA doesn't have its own built-out global point or pay schemes, but in terms of creating your own, the interface is exactly the same. What dollar amount corresponds to what finishing position? You can do show-up points, you can do show-up pay, you can do heat race pay, qualifying pay, every kind of race that you run. All of that's in here. This is, I will say, one of the things that is the most commonly asked question by tracks getting ready for their first race is, okay, help me with the schemes. This is probably one of the more complicated things here. The interface is pretty easy when you get used to it, but that opening night anxiety, hey man, I get that. There's a lot of stuff to worry about opening night. If you want one less thing, don't be afraid to email support. Say, here's my scheme. Can you guys help me make sure this is right or looks like it's supposed to look or all that kind of stuff? And we're available to help you. The only other thing in scheme information here that I will direct you to is for lineup points. This will only come into play for a passing point show. Again, we've got a lot of global passing point schemes in there already. the classic ASCS, the new ASCS with qualifying, the USMTS, the WSOTA stuff. There's a lot of stuff in there that we've got. But you can create your own custom one as well. So if you're running a passing point show, make sure your passing point schemes look, like they're supposed to look. If you're, you're +5, you're -1.5, you're 100 to win, all those kinds of things. Make sure it looks like it's supposed to look however you're going to do it. And if you need help with those things, definitely reach out. But that's where you can find that stuff, is up in the settings wheel in the upper right. But now that I've got my schemes created, I can calculate my points and pay for the night. So I'm going to add a points and pay group. I always name my points groups point group 1. I have no reason for doing so. It just has always been simple for me. Beyond that, I will choose the IMCA modified point scheme. I'll choose the pay scheme that makes sense for whatever we're doing. Add it to whatever schedule you need to add it to. Apply it to competitors or owners or teams or any combination of those things. And then we are good to go. We can add. From there, you can edit what schedule it applies to. You can apply points to competitors or owners or teams. You can edit that up here. But you'll see that because I had schemes built in, all of these things are in here already for points and pay. If your schemes are accurate, your points and pay is done right now. You don't have to do anything else. Now, you can put adjustments in here. If second place got a bonus of $50, I can type $50 in here. If you know that he got docked $100 for, detrimental actions, I can put a -100 in here. You can always edit these things with that adjustment box. But again, if your schemes are accurate, your points and pay will be done in one click. The final thing that I'll direct you to here is this Create Payments button at the bottom of the screen. Hit Create Payments. It brings you to the Payments tab of Season Management. Couple of things that you can do here for end of night stuff. First off, if you're going to pay somebody a different amount than what they're owed for whatever reason, you can make that adjustment here. But you can also create checks from this screen. So if I hit Create Checks, put in the check layout, the starting check number, check the box, and create, you'll print your checks. It'll print the checks for you. You want to take it a step further, you want to get your signature on a rubber stamp, you can stamp them as they come out the printer. And now the biggest pain in the neck part of every race night, when the races are over and it's late and everyone's ready to go home, can now be done in 2 minutes. Who's ever doing your checks, if you start to utilize this, it's going to be so much simpler for them. This has been a huge selling point for us. There's a reason for that. Just takes one headache off your plate. You can also print a report that I love to use wherever I'm at that allows folks to sign for their checks. There's the payee information listed here. If the payee is a car owner, the driver's name is in parentheses, how much they were owed, how much they were paid, white space for them to sign. Sign for your check when you show up to the pay window. I hand you your check. See you next week. Fast and easy stuff there. You can also print mailing labels from this screen. So if you're doing payouts during the week after the race night, like mailing them out after that, we have folks that still do that. You can print mailing labels out of this screen. You get their addresses from registration. I talked about registration last week. Definitely consider having your folks register online. And then you can also export this information into QuickBooks. So if you're using QuickBooks to track your financials, QuickBooks export right there. And then you can shut the lights off and go home. If only it were that easy. That's payouts, man. That's points and pay. Like I said, if you're an IMCA sanctioned track using IMCA sanctioned classes, you'll never have to think about points because you'll just select the IMCA global point scheme every night, and it'll auto update in the app, and it'll auto update on your profile, and it'll auto update on your website. Get your pay stuff right, give it a couple shakes. It'll be simple and pretty easy there. You get your pay stuff right. And it makes this stuff go a lot faster end of night. If you're doing this the right way, the last person there should be your announcer because he's writing your post-race recap, or your PR guy. The scores and stuff like that, really, this should make it pretty dang efficient for those folks. And if you got questions or different things that we can look at to make it different or better or whatever else, always feel free to reach out to us. But we think we're pretty close here. There's a lot of tools that you've got at your disposal. And, myself and Dakota, we're here to make sure that it works as efficiently as possible for you. Chris, I think, just posted in the chat the YouTube playlists that we've got. So if you want to go over any of this, it'll all be on YouTube. We've got individual specific YouTube videos for individual tasks in the program as well. Check that out if you got questions. Check out our help center if you got questions. Email us if you got questions. Does anybody have anything here tonight regarding any of the things that we've looked at?
And that link that I just said there, that one is specifically for the how to favorite the app, favorite your profile in the app. So, go ahead and we encourage you guys to share that link for your fans. Let them know, hey, favorite our app so you know when we're going to be live. And also, if you have a website through us or use the news, they'll also be sent a push notification of that headline that whenever you guys post a news article, they can click it and go to. So I've told Austin many times that the push notifications, it's one of my favorite features we have, and it's an extremely valuable tool for you guys to use.
Yeah, absolutely. And next week, when we meet again, doing this next week, we're going to look at online ticketing, reserved ticketing, but we're also going to look at those news articles. We're also going to look at fantasy. We're going to look at your contact list and your reports, and we're going to look at those website management tools as well. So, that can be super valuable with some of the extra outside of season and race stuff. The ticketing stuff, man, reserve seating has exploded here. It's been really cool and valuable to see that take off. But, we're excited about a lot of stuff. If nobody's got any questions, that's all I've got for the night. After 4 trainings and 2 webinars today, my voice is a little croaky. So I think I'm gonna go hang out with my kids and go to bed. Mickey, you got something?
Hey, on the payments, do we have to do that for it to be included on their WR at the end of the night? The W9 at the end of the year or whatever.
If you pressing this create payments button right here in the bottom of the points and pay tab is what pushes the payout information into that 1099 report as well.
Okay, because we don't pay with check. The owners are paying with cash, but that's what I wasn't sure with if it would do that.
Yep. Yeah. You press create payments here, and you'll push all of that payout data to the 1099 report, so you can still track it effectively, even if you're paying with cash. Cool. Well, thanks again, everybody, for taking this extra hour out of your evening. I really appreciate you doing so. I appreciate the folks that showed up last weekend, this week as well. We're going to have one more of these next week, Tuesday at 7:30 again. I don't think the time changes. But again, appreciate it, everybody. If you got any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Until then, enjoy the rest of your evening.